Hey everyone, Sergio here. Welcome to another episode of Behind the Wheel. Today I'm joined by Tristan, a fellow YouTuber, and I'm assuming full-time rideshare driver, from Charleston, South Carolina, where actually one of my favorite drivers drives. Our sunshine man, Jeff, drives in Charleston, although he's in Myrtle Beach, but he does, infringe upon Tristan's territory there. But Tristan, welcome. Introduce yourself, please.
Thank you. My name is Tristan Thomas, and as Sergio pointed out, I am a driver in Charleston. I started driving in October 2020, and it's been a pretty good time. And I have a lot of things I want to break down and talk with Sergio about.
Yeah, I absolutely wanted to do this for a while. So for all of you who want to check Tristan's YouTube channel out, it is Future Rideshare Millionaire on YouTube. He has a growing channel. He does put out really good content and content that actually has substance as opposed to some yelling and screaming into the screen. So, we'll talk about that in a minute. So, what did you do before this, Tristan? I'm assuming this is your full-time gig now?
So I actually ended up in Charleston because I was a district manager for a company called Parker's Kitchen. I ended up quitting during the pandemic when the government was handing out a lot of money. I saw that as a really good time to pivot into something else. I wanted to go back to school for computer science, but the program I enrolled in, I thought I'd be able to do gig work on the side while focusing and actually doing the work. But it was very time consuming and I was falling behind on my bills. So I decided I would try to get debt free and then try to do the program. But in the mix of all that, I decided I wanted to use rideshare as a stepping stone into being the YouTuber.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think rideshare today, but you're at one of the better markets, to be perfectly honest with you. Although it may be a little seasonal because of the tourist season, but you're definitely in one of the better markets. Maybe not as good as, Boston, but you definitely are probably top 10. So you said you were a district manager before, obviously W2 world, right? What did you do? Had enough of that? And then
So I really did enjoy the job. It pushed me a lot and I grew a lot. And I've always been a hard worker. You know, I started off as a Pizza Hut driver and I became a store manager in less than a year. It's just in my nature to do everything the best as I can, including rideshare. But I never wanted to stay in food. I never wanted to be in food. Food is not great for family life. That's your nights and weekends. So I just saw the pandemic as an opportunity to get away from that, and then I saw that rideshare was an even better opportunity to give me the freedom and the flexibility to re-pivot where I want to do what I want to do with life.
yeah. So would you call yourself a full-time driver?
I'm definitely a full-time driver. I like
Okay.
to tell my passengers that that rideshare is my full-time income, but I'm trying to be a full-time YouTuber.
Okay, cool. So that's the plan B, I guess, right? But just you mentioned something that actually I actually want to talk bulk of this interview about. Um, Look, rideshare is what it is. Rideshare is not going anywhere. A lot of people complain about doing it, but they keep doing it, right? And so I usually ask this at the end of the interview, but I'm going to ask at the start so we can expand upon it. Give me a couple of things you like about rideshare and give me a couple of things you dislike about doing rideshare full time.
All right, so my favorite things about rideshare is the flexibility and the ability to work as much as I want. You know, compared to being paid salary, if I worked 70 hours, I'm still paid the same amount no matter what. And I'm not a huge fan of that. So even though I make less per hour doing rideshare, because I can work more hours with rideshare, it gives me the ability to make more than I was making as a salary position.
Right.
Something I dislike about rideshare. It's be
Other YouTubers.
I'm not gonna say that. I think other YouTubers have their places in the rideshare community. I just wish that they felt the same. You know, I wish that they shared that viewpoint, that there are many viewpoints and not one or the other is necessarily wrong. And advice should be used as a tool, and everyone's gonna have different uses for different tools at different times.
Yeah.
Um, I
No, but
think
specifically about rideshare, what do you dislike it? Mate, well, we can talk about the companies, obviously, what they do and how they treat drivers, because that seems like the major complaint when it comes to the, community's top two, three, gripes about the companies.
Uh, okay, I'll give one about the companies and I'll give one about the actual work. I see them as two separate things. The one about the companies is I hate the lack of transparency that they've had. They've made some really good steps forward into being more transparent. And I think we need to keep pressuring them to continue being more transparent, especially when it comes to breaking down insurance costs and knowing where that money specifically goes. And then that fits into the larger umbrella of I dislike when Uber and Lyft put out features that are meant on their end to save them money at the expense of drivers, but they package it in a way that's not that obvious. We can get into that later. As part of the actual work, I hate that my butt has to be in the seat to make money. You know that,
Yeah.
and you can say that about a lot of different jobs. But part of my pivot plan was to be in a position where, and I'm not going to call it passive income. It's because even YouTube isn't passive. It's a lot of work up front, but the work that you do pays dividends once you post it. So I'm looking to get away from tying all of my income from having to have my butt in that seat.
Yeah, well, but at the moment you have to because I know your history and we talk quite a bit is you said you're doing this to pay your to pay your debts, right? A lot of people do rideshare for many different reasons. Some are retired, some don't want to fight with the wife at home, so they get out. Some do it full time, some do it part time. So as a full timer in a decent market, right? You said you started in 2020. You started pretty much at the height of the earnings potential. I mean, like during the pandemic, I don't know if you did deliveries or not, but even rideshare was fantastic. The companies were shelling out incentives right and left to get drivers back on the platform. What would you say the difference is between, 2020, not earnings wise, overall, in your city between 2020 and now?
First, I'll say I actually started off doing grocery deliveries,
Okay.
pivoted to food delivery, and then I was very nervous. I tried Uber and Lyft, and then I realized it was about double the money. And when
Yeah.
I realized that, all of the nervousness went away. But if I had known the previous state of rideshare before the pandemic so that I could appreciate how much money Uber and Lyft were shelling out for the pandemic, I would have taken better advantage of it. And I regret that I didn't.
Yeah, I mean,
I,
no, but you know what it is though? A lot of drivers, by the way, only do one thing or the other. A lot of people think, yeah, they get to do rideshare, and when the season is off, or maybe, during the day, let's say between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m., rideshare is kind of slow. So they pivot to food delivery, grocery delivery, but it's not like that. People are loyal either to rideshare alone or, deliveries alone. But so you did this, you've been doing it for 4 years, right?
yeah,
Tell me why well, first of all, what kind of car do you drive now?
I drive a 2013 Prius V. It's the larger model.
That's just the perfect car.
Yeah,
So,
I think so as well.
yeah. So let's, I've seen you talk quite a bit about new rideshare drivers getting into, the gig space and, flashing these brand new cars. Let's talk like about a minute. What is your opinion about people buying new cars and or EVs or getting into rideshare? Because I
All
think you
right.
have the perfect car.
I think that no one should be buying a new car unless you're debt free and you acknowledge the amount of the depreciation that happens as soon as you get it. If you want to do it for fun, your finances are set, great. But if you're actually trying to make something of yourself and use Uber Lyft as a stepping stone, you should absolutely stay away from brand new cars.
I
So
agree.
I believe the perfect car is a used car. As far as EVs go, of course, that fits into no new EVs. The used prices for EVs have come down a lot, but I would still say don't use any debt. If you have to use debt to buy a used car, it creates too much of a risk, right? You get sick, you still have a car note. You get into an accident, you still have a car note until insurance takes care of it. Your engine drops out of your car, you still have a car note. And by being debt free, it eliminates so much risk that's associated with being a rideshare driver. So my personal preference is I don't want to buy a car I can't recuperate the cost of within 6 months or less.
Yeah.
So you have to understand your market, understand how much you can make in 6 months. And if you can't make that amount in 6 months, I don't think you should be getting that car, even if you can pay cash.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Rideshare today, from what I know 7, 8 years ago, is completely different animal. Okay. With our eyes closed, we would gross 50, 60, 70 on weekends, probably higher, per hour. And with just 40 hours, 3K later, we'd be like laughing. Well, things have changed quite a bit, but that's not the point. The issue is, I think rideshare today, right? A lot of people are doing rideshare with cars that are going to depreciate tremendously because you're, as a full-time driver, I'm assuming you're putting 5, 6,000 miles a month on your car, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are doing it using their cars like ATM machines. Meaning, get some cash flow going, use the remaining equity in your car to pay short-term bills, and you have nothing to pay for it. And that's why I think you're right on the point when you say do not do rideshare with a car that you can't pay off after 6 months. I mean, I think that's dead on point.
Yeah. I honestly believe that, so there are two things that drivers should be focused on, right? Their pay and their expenses. We know Uber and Lyft have overtime, and I'm seeing some pullback, some change where Lyft is making some improvements, but generally speaking, since the pandemic, pay has been decreasing, right? We have kind of little control over that aspect, but we have so much control over our spending. And
Yeah,
if we most of us don't even have a budget. If we put together a budget, it'll literally tell you how much money you need to make to survive and how much money you need to make to thrive. And that's where drivers really need to focus their time on. What can I do to stop being that hamster in the wheel so that I can do rideshare because I want to and not because I have to.
yeah, yeah, I agree 100%. So let's talk a little bit about, I mean, I'm not going to ask you why you got into debt, how you got into debt, all that stuff. We all get into debt somehow.
We can talk about it. I don't
We
mind.
spend money we don't have because on my new finance channel, I nonstop talk about it. If you're not going to pay the credit card bill within 30 days while you're floating the bank's money, don't buy it. Don't do it. Or if you can pay cash for it, do it. Knock yourself out. But we buy a lot. I mean, we're a consumer spender economy. That's it. That's the only way this is going to keep going. But if you want to talk about it, let's talk about that. Like, how'd you get into all that debt? And, you know, how far are you along in paying off that debt? Because I think you're using rideshare mainly to do that, correct?
That's correct. So I started off as a single person, right? And with from my single person debt, I had about $7,000 on a repoed car. I had about $13,000 on a current car, and I had about $30,000 in student loans. I had other small debts. I don't remember them, but they were pretty small. And then I got married, and my wife, she has student loans. She got her master's. She actually uses her degree. I didn't even finish mine. She had her car, but before we got married, she saw what I was doing, and she ended up paying off hers. So when we got married last September, we had about $130,000 of combined debt, and now we have about 70,000. So we've made tremendous progress, and it's been very intentional. And I want to tell you guys a story. When he's like, as I've been paying off my debt, I've realized by looking back how different my life would have been if I didn't. So earlier this year, I got into a car accident. This was around early summer, and we had just paid off that Volkswagen in January. So when you get into an accident, even though it was my fault, they still paid me for the value of my car.
Yeah.
But I didn't have to wait because my car was paid off. I wasn't worried about the car payments. And I was saving for my next car anyways, because I was getting above the 120,000 mile marker. So I was starting to put money aside for another car. I was able to buy my replacement car in cash without waiting for the insurance company to reimburse me. Had I been in debt, I would have been not just waiting for the reimbursement, but paying a car loan if I never paid off that car. So, it's just like every time something bad happens in my life, as I'm going through this process of paying off my debt, it reinforces the fact that I'm on the right track.
No, I 100% believe you're on the right track. First of all, with the choice you made buying the car that you're driving for rideshare now,
I
right?
did a
I
lot
mean,
of research.
I'm telling you because that's actually where the where you're the winner. I mean, a lot of people would have gone bought like a 2020 car or something like that.
It, I
Eh,
thought about it. It was very hard not to do it. Very hard not to fall back into that same trap.
No, no, I mean, well, if you learn from your mistakes, you wouldn't have done it, and you obviously learned from your mistakes. So your debt's going down. Are you basically using most or all of your rideshare income? Since I'm assuming your wife works, right? So she's bringing some cash as well. Are you using all that to pay both of your debts, the rideshare income?
So first, I'm gonna say we have combined finances. So when I start divvying up the numbers, don't think we're on separate tracks. Just want
Okay.
to make that clear. Her income pretty much pays or is at the level that can afford everything in our household.
Okay.
My general household bills, our general household bills comes to about 2,000 a month. She makes more than that, but sometimes we have weddings and things like that we
Yeah,
go
yeah.
to. Her bills can afford all of that. So essentially, every dollar I make net can go right towards debt.
Okay.
And I'm not going to say we're perfect. Sometimes we spend in areas that we shouldn't. We're buying and eating out too much. But generally speaking, I know that every dollar I make is the dollar that can go towards debt. So if I want to pay this debt off quicker, it's on me. She's on salary. I'm the one that can go out and work more and make more.
Yeah. I mean, the thing that doesn't bother me, but then frivolously spending bothers me quite a bit. Debt is a necessary. I mean, it for all of us, especially, if you have a small business or whatever. But I mean, a lot of us just take out this plastic and just blow it, and it just irritates the crap out of me, really, to be honest with you. But so you're going to pay this debt down. I mean, it seems like you're making quite a bit of a headwind. I mean, you paid what, 40% of it already
Yep.
or 35, 40%. So can you tell me a little bit about Tristan of the future, right?
Okay.
You want to obviously pay this debt off, done, right? And then what?
All right. So I have a target date of being debt free before next summer. If
Okay.
if that can be happen. And that's not including the house. The house has a different plan.
That's a different
So
story. Yeah.
yeah, different story, different plan. We plan on paying off early too. But once I'm debt free, I really want to move out to a tax free state. It's come down to Vegas pretty much. I want to experience the western half of America without living in California.
Don't
Just
come to California.
I'll come to visit. That's the most I'll do. I'll come and
Yeah, I'll
visit.
come visit you. I was like, don't come to California.
But at my core, I knew I wanted to start a family, and I knew I wanted to put myself in a position to do something that didn't really take me out the house. So I'm gonna be a full-time YouTuber, and it's going to be difficult to be a full-time YouTuber who doesn't really want to do Uber and Lyft. So of course, I'm going to have different channels that I have planned. One example is that I want to start a diabetic channel. I'm not going to blame rideshare, but because of my sedentary life, I was diagnosed with diabetes type 2 last January 2023. But
Okay.
as of today, according to my blood level tests, I'm not diabetic anymore, even though I still live that diabetic lifestyle. So
Yeah.
I have a passion for wanting to get the correct information out to those who need it. Just like what I do with my rideshare channel.
Yeah.
I just want to make channels where I'm living the life I want to live, exploring the things I want to explore, and teaching others how to do it too. I plan on getting my private license. I'll probably start a channel for that. I'll probably do what you do and start a specific finance channel as well. So I just, for me, being debt free is the key to unlocking the ability to do more what I want because I don't have to worry about all of these bills.
Yeah. I mean, this is what rideshare is for people. Okay. And he's taken full advantage of it. I mean, a lot of people look, I'm not a I'm not the enemy of these companies, although I may sound like it once in a while. My thing is they have created this ridiculously amazing marketplace. Seriously. And they put $35 billion on fire while at it. And now they're turning a profit. One of them anyway. And so this is what rideshare is for. I believe you're doing it like 100% correctly, right? You have a goal, you set your goal, you're working towards your goal, you're using rideshare to do that, and that's what rideshare is for. I think you will do pretty much anything you set your mind to do it. But let's talk a couple of minutes about you know, the market that you're in, right? Is it seasonal, totally seasonal? I know I've been to Charleston, I've been to Kiowa Island actually a couple of times, and we went through Charleston on the way there. So what happens if the seasonality hits, things slow down? And I'm assuming you drive for both platforms, right? Uber and Lyft?
Initially, I was only with Lyft because Uber wouldn't let me drive for them, but now I do drive for both.
Okay, which is the right thing to do. So what are you going to do if seasonality shows up? But I'm pretty sure you have experienced that. So let's talk a couple of minutes about that.
Sure. I would say 8 to 9 months out of the year, Charleston is either decent or excellent. October is actually the last month for me until it slows down until March. Of course, you'll have some days that'll be busy, like New Year's, but for the most part, it's going to be a cold season until March. What happens in Charleston? Charleston is a tourist town with a lot of college kids. So
Okay.
once November hits and everyone's doing their exams, they leave. It gets a little colder. The wedding season starts to end. People don't really come to Charleston for family holidays. They leave Charleston to go and visit their family. So that just becomes the story until March, until St. Patrick's week hits, and then wedding season starts back up. I have found that pivoting to grocery deliveries during the holiday season is a really good way to fill in that gap because traffic, once everyone's gone, the traffic levels drop. So it makes it worth it to go and do Walmart Spark or whatever because there's no traffic for you to get stuck in. And then you can still, if you're following the calendar and you're paying attention to events and things like that, you can still make some good money depending on the night when it comes to Uber and Lyft. And then, I've even considered, I really loved working with Amazon at the warehouse.
Yeah.
I've considered getting a part-time job with them for the season. I'm not sure that's what I want to do, but
Yeah.
it definitely drops off and it's going to drop off really soon.
Yeah. Well, we have a few minutes remaining, but I want to revert back to, something that's near and dear to my heart, which is budgeting, which from the top, our government, all the way down, we don't know what a balanced budget looks like.
It's wild.
So, let's talk a few minutes and then give our audience some advice. I mean, tell me like how you do this. Like, do you have spreadsheets? Do you have weekly, monthly, quarterly budgets? Like, obviously, you're just not saying, hey, there's money coming in from rideshare, I'm paying my debt. No, it's not that simple. Give me like the structure. Give me the way you're doing it because I think a lot of people can benefit learning from you.
Okay. So something that we do is once a month we'll have a budget meeting. When the first time we had a budget meeting, it took a long time. We failed. So it's what you think you spend on things isn't what you spend on things until you're actually paying attention to those things. Like we thought $150 would be enough for groceries. It's not. We thought we weren't spending $400 eating out. We were.
Yeah,
So what it starts with is I started with a simple spreadsheet and all you do is you start with your income. Well, if you're a rideshare driver, let's start with the expenses because we can control our income. You want to start with the biggest items, your mortgage or rent, your expected electricity, groceries, and you just go down that list and you see what that number totals. And for most people, the first time they make a budget and they look at like how much they need to make per month, the first question is, where is all my money going? This doesn't look right. This number is too low. All I need is this amount to survive. Yet
yeah,
I've been making this amount and not getting there. It's because it's really most people live and die with their budget by the small cuts, the
yeah,
small transactions, going out and getting $10 meals 3 times a day, 5 times a week. It adds up. And the budget just helps you plan for it. But the second part, which most people forget to do, is at the end of the month, you need to look through your transactions and compare, right? I haven't really put it out publicly. I do have a free budget tracker that I have. I'll share it with you guys. I'll give it to Sergio if he wants to share it. You'll just be able to download it. And then I do also have a specific rideshare business tracker that tracks your mileage. It also you put in your own expenses, you put in your income, and it breaks it down. And you can get that through my YouTube channel too. So
Yeah.
like what what do you think should be the most important aspect for a rideshare driver when they're considering it a budget?
As far as a rideshare driver is concerned,
Yeah,
a lot of people miss on a lot. A lot of people just put the gas in the car and go. Or they go like, "That's my cost." Like, no, that's not your cost. We've done like a lot of shows on our channel about budgeting, about depreciation, about all the, cost per mile. If you don't know what your cost per mile is, how do you accept or decline a trip? It's just, I mean, if you don't know, you don't know. But I mean, not knowing is not the problem. But doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results is the definition of insanity.
insanity.
People go like, I'm like, buddy, this is not working for you. I mean, you should do this in a way that it's a business like Tristan is doing. But so I'll give you a couple of minutes. I mean, I think you're doing everything right. And I hope people learn from you. Again, his channel is Future Rideshare Millionaire. But in closing, close us up. I'll give you a couple of minutes. You have the floor.
Okay. I I know a lot of people might disagree with me on the tactics, the tools. You could say my market's great, my market's bad. At the end of the day, if you don't know your numbers, you don't know where you're winning and where you're losing and how to fix it, right? So many drivers, they don't want to pay attention to the numbers. They think it's too much work. But I promise you, if you're actually paying attention to how much you're making per mile, paying attention to your taxes, I know if even if you're paying someone to do your taxes for you, you need to understand and be involved with that process so that you can determine what you can do throughout the year to save in that process. Rideshare drivers really make their money off of the standard mileage deduction. And if you can keep your expenses lower than the standard mileage deduction to a point, there is going to be where your every dollar you make, a percentage of that is earned tax free if you keep your expenses low. And don't spend just for the standard deduction because that's like trading a dollar that you have for a quarter that the government gives you. So just be aware of those things. Don't let people get you down. Have a budget and make sure you have an emergency fund.
Yep.
It needs to be enough to first cover your average car maintenance costs, but eventually, as you're paying down your debt and you have that car payment that's no longer there that you can now fund into an emergency fund, you eventually build that up to have enough to buy a used car if you want to be a long-term rideshare driver, so you're not continually falling into that pit.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself. So here's Tristan from Charleston, South Carolina, beautiful state. Tristan, I appreciate you doing this. I really think people could learn quite a bit from you, and I wanted to do this for a while. So thank you for spending the time, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. You've been very patient with me getting on this show.
Thanks for watching this episode of Behind the Wheel on the Rideshare Guy. We've been doing these interviews for the past 6 months with very successful drivers from different cities around the nation. Click here for another episode. Make sure you subscribe and turn on all notifications for other episodes of Behind the Wheel as well as amazing content on our channel.